Welcome into Morning Invest on this Wednesday, June 17th. So great to have you here. I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor, former news anchor turned entrepreneur. And this show is all about helping you build financial intelligence so you can build financial freedom. And these are the news stories, I think, around finance that matter to the average American, not the Wall Street crew, who's certainly flying high right now, happy because Jerome Powell testified yesterday in front of Congress once again and said there's a long road to recovery. Now, normally that kind of thing would move markets, and we'll get to what he had to say, but stock markets seem to be just happy because of what they're doing behind the scenes to buy up all of this junk, making Wall Street super happy. Also, stocks jumped because of what President Trump had to say about infrastructure, getting word from the White House about a $1 trillion infrastructure plan, in addition to another round of stimulus money. Those pieces are coming together. So what will that look like? We've got 5 different key areas on this infrastructure plan that we're hearing from the White House. But it doesn't look like Republicans are too happy about this $2 trillion price tag right now from President Trump. So will it be $1 trillion? Will there be some sort of compromise? We'll see. Also on the show, Jim Banks, Republican congressman, has 5 key areas that he thinks need to be in this next round of stimulus. But there's one big thing that's missing from his list of 5, and we'll talk about that. Plus, I'm super excited because one of my longtime friends, a dear friend of mine, we were co-anchors for many years, one of the keenest, smartest minds when it comes to sports, and frankly, a lot of things, not just sports, but is going to be on the show today. My friend Dave Briggs, longtime sports anchor and close friend, is going to be on the show today to talk about the state of sports in this world. What are we doing? I've been waiting and salivating for baseball to come back, for us to talk about football again, to get back to some sort of normalcy. NBA finals should be happening right around now, right? Usually this time of the year, I would think. Wimbledon, all of that missing. So what are we going to see by way of reopening? Dave is going to join us here in just a bit to talk about sports. So let's get started and talk about Jerome Powell. He spoke yesterday in front of one of those Zoom conferences around the stimulus, what the Federal Reserve is doing to buoy the economy right now and lift everything up. Did he have any words of wisdom for Congress on what they should do? Let's hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell on what he is planning to use with these tools and when they plan to take their foot off of the gas a little bit. Take a listen.
The tools that we're using under Section 13.3 authority are appropriately reserved for times of emergency. When this crisis is behind us, we will put them away. In the June report, we review the implications of these tools for the Fed's balance sheet. Many of these facilities have been supported by funding from the CARES Act, and we will be disclosing on a monthly basis names and details of participants in each such facility, amounts borrowed and interest rate charged, and overall costs, revenues, and fees for each facility. We embrace our responsibility to the American people to be as transparent as possible. And we appreciate that the need for transparency is heightened when we're called upon to use our emergency powers.
So that was a little slap. To me, I read that as a little bit of a slap to the Treasury Department and the White House. Maybe I'm wrong, but I took that as, when talking about transparency, who's receiving these corporate bailouts? Who's have these junk bonds bought up? Which businesses are going to be the ones that are going to have to prove themselves here to get this liquidity? We're going to give you a full list of that on a weekly basis, so you'll know exactly at what interest rate and how they're being serviced. That's in stark contrast to the way that these PPP loans have been rolled out. We've covered it here on the show. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin was asked about that last week during his testimony in front of the Senate. And they were pressing on, why can't we find out which one of these public companies are getting millions of dollars that was supposed to go to Main Street, to these smaller businesses? And they said, you know what, we're just not going to release that information. Larry Kudlow doubled down on that, senior economic advisor for President Trump. But then about a day later, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin rolled that back and said, no, we will have a discussion with the Senate, making sure that they're getting a list of these individuals and will be as transparent as possible. So it seems like they walked that back. But Federal Reserve not slowing down and said, we have every right to use these tools and we're going to continue to use them well into 2022. So among the things that the Fed chair talked about is the level of output and employment remain far below where they need to be right now, pre-pandemic levels, and significant uncertainty remains about the timing and strength of the recovery. So The White House is saying we're going to be bouncing back by the third quarter. You heard Larry Kudlow the other day doing his little song and dance in his top hat, talking about how everything is roaring back. But Chairman Powell has continued to say this is going to be a long slog. Long slog. Like, even if we're at 20% unemployment, that's still twice the size of what we were during the Great Recession back in 2009, in October of 2009. So he went on to say, Powell did, it's out of an excess of caution to preserve these gains and the market function by following through. He said, we're telling the American business owners and the American people that we're going to continue to buy up these junk bonds, we're going to continue to provide liquidity in the market, continue to try to keep inflation at a certain level, and we have to follow through on that. And that's why the stock market just, had a great day. They jumped 180 points. It's a 4-day winning streak now for the stock market, thanks to what the Fed chief has said, in addition to what President Trump has said on infrastructure. Interestingly, the Fed chair also shot down negative interest rates. I see a lot of you asking here in the chat about, interest rates, negative interest rates. Will we go negative? Multiple Fed chairs have now said, no, we're not going negative. We don't see any need for it. We have many tools left in our tool belt. We don't need to do it. So he shot down any possibility of it. Of course, you remember a few months ago, President Trump tweeting about how it would be beautiful if we had negative interest rates. He said, just like other parts of the world, it would be a beautiful number, he said. Those were his words, a beautiful number. Yet it's been a failed program in Europe. Just talk to Sweden. Just talk to other countries who've tried this. It doesn't work. It's been a disaster. We have 2 years of a track record of it not working. So I don't know what beautiful number he's looking at. But so no negative interest rates. And also, interestingly, they're not going to start winding down their balance sheets. What does that mean? That means that they're sitting on trillions of dollars of stuff that they've just bought up. They're buying $4 billion a day of these junk bonds, mortgage-backed securities, all of this stuff. The stuff that Wall Street doesn't want. Now they're buying corporate debt also, companies that got hurt during the pandemic. And they're not going to slow down. He said, we have enough. This debt is fine on our balance sheet and it doesn't pose any kind of threat to our financial stability or inflation. That's remarkable. You're sitting on $6 trillion on your balance sheet and it doesn't pose any real threat to inflation or your financial stability. But again, doesn't this paint the same old picture? On the one side, you have Wall Street's doing just fine, all of these investors doing just fine. And then on the other side, you have the American people, you who can't pay for medications. We have Steve, one of our viewers here, who's homeless, set up a GoFundMe to be able to help pay for medical bills and can't even get a bank account in order to get the money out of the GoFundMe account. So the tale of two different stories. Again, Wall Street, Main Street. So one investor, I thought that this was interesting. I'm going to quote this person. This is an economist. Said Wall Street is doing backflips again, thanks to the Fed's announcement that they're going to buy up more junk bonds. Quote, it feels almost like there's nothing to fear for investors. Most of the default risk is now shouldered by the Fed. So during a recession, investors are fine because the Fed steps in and protects them. And during a non-recession, they're fine because everyone's buying and retail's exploding and people are using airplanes again. This just goes to show you that in any environment, they're fine. A total global pandemic, they're fine. But most Americans, not fine and being crushed right now, saddled by rent that they're not able to pay, mortgages they're not able to pay, medications they can't buy. So many people left off the ability to get medications right now. Reports saying 12 million Americans being crushed right now in their inability to get access to medications. Incredibly troubling. So, news of this infrastructure. What does President Trump want? Well, we heard yesterday that the White House, a couple of sources came forward and said the president plans to roll out a $1 trillion infrastructure stimulus plan. Now, that might be in addition to the $2 trillion that he already wants or in combination with. So that's starting to come together. We're hearing from sources now that Republicans and the White House would want one bill, one giant bill that would include infrastructure. Will it include $1 trillion? Who knows? But President Trump wants roads. Here are the 5 things that it's focused on. Roads, bridges, tunnels, 5G wireless infrastructure, and rural broadband. Now, I'm curious about this 5G wireless infrastructure because there was a whole lot of outcry in Europe when Huawei, the Chinese telecom, was going to be putting in these 5G towers. And you had the Eurozone basically saying, yeah, that's no problem, until you realize that it was a huge problem. That you're going to have China controlling your 5G network because they're trustworthy. Now, is the same thing going to apply in America? How will they assist with a 5G infrastructure rollout? Do we trust our government to not misuse that information? I'm just really curious what the details of this 5G infrastructure will look like. And rural broadband. Will they be working in tandem with Verizon and Sprint and others and AT&T for this rollout? Maybe through some sort of tax credits or other things? Or are they going to be out there rolling coil themselves? I'll be fascinated to see that. So Republicans, once again, are looking for this one big bill that would include a second round of stimulus in addition to infrastructure. But not a lot of Republicans are exactly happy about this price tag. Chairman Grassley and others have been asked about this over the past 48 hours, this $2 trillion, and they've had to couch it by saying, well, we're going to wait and see through July just to how things are. We're going to keep our eye on this number through July, and then we'll make a determination then. Chairman Grassley was a little bit more vocal about it, basically saying, well, we want to keep it near $1 trillion. So I don't know that that's going to make the White House happy. Once again, I think that the White House is able to play good cop, bad cop here, don't you? On the one hand, they're able to say, we're not going for $3 trillion, which is what Nancy Pelosi wants to do, but we're not going to go for $1 trillion. That's what Mitch McConnell wants to do, one of the most unliked senators in the Senate. I want to be somewhere in the middle, doing this massive infrastructure plan to get people back to work. But as you know, the problem we talked about yesterday with infrastructure plans is that it takes a long time for these things to bear fruit. Remember during the Obama administration, all of these shovel-ready projects that simply weren't shovel-ready at all? And big companies got their backs scratched through lobbying and managed to get all these nice cushy contracts. Like I said, remember Solyndra and others? So $1 trillion, there better be oversight set up to watch this, because right now there are 3 different oversight programs in place and they're not working. There's $3 trillion already out there for the stimulus, and Brian Miller was just approved to be the main watchdog. He's a Trump ally. You have these other departments that don't have any staff right now to make sure that this money isn't being misused and misspent. So you're going to have $1 trillion infrastructure plan that's going to be lining the pockets of all of these people in their back home in their districts. Oh, you need a new road built? Oh, you lobbied. You donated money to my campaign, didn't you? I smell trouble from a mile away on this one, don't you? But they're not happy about this $2 trillion plan. I want to talk about Representative Jim Banks on the stimulus, because he rolled out an opinion piece yesterday and had 5 different proposals that he thinks should be in the next stimulus package. Now, Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, specifically talking about the unemployment rate there, has just been 17% unemployment in Indiana. It's been really bad. It's been really bad. Their response to the virus was slower than some other states like Ohio, so they got bit pretty hard, specifically in Indianapolis. So there's 5 different things that Representative Banks wants in the next stimulus. Let's see if you're on board with this. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Number 1, he wants the death tax eliminated, because he says that families who are already dealing with an unexpected loss from a loved one over COVID-19 don't need an added punishment of the death tax. He wants that removed. Number 2, small business owners and entrepreneurs need extra cash, he says, to rebuild and invest in their employees. The self-employment tax hurts job creators, and we need job creation more than ever. So that self-employment tax, he also wants that rolled back. Number 3, he wants an incentivized work program, so letting workers keep more of their own money, and he wants to cut the payroll tax, which is what President Trump has been calling for. What they already did back in 2016, another payroll tax. But Republicans aren't on board. I'm surprised to hear him say this. A lot of Republicans are not on board, because how in the world are we going to pay for anything if we have more of a payroll tax cut? And let's be honest, Social Security is already on its last legs, only 15 years left of solvency in that account. So he's calling for payroll tax cuts, and he specifically says we need to do that more than any direct cash payments to Americans, because you have to earn a paycheck to benefit. Great. But what about the people who don't have a job to go back to? You can't cut their payroll because they don't have a job. so many millions of Americans are unemployed, not because they want to be, but because the business they worked for is no longer in existence. What is going to happen to those people? Number 4 on his list, Americans shouldn't have to worry about their taxes going up. So he wants a cap on tax and making sure that taxes don't go up during a recession. And number 5, he says that he wants to suspend burdensome regulation. That he said federal regulations cost small businesses $1,500 per employee. Now, I'm not sure specifically what programs he's talking about. He said lifting that burden on regulation would enable businesses to hire more employees. Now, I'm all for that. I think this just sounds like small potatoes. And I also don't think it gets to the heart of where's any kind of a discussion about state and local governments in here, in this mix. Now, there are some sources saying that the White House and others are calling for billions of dollars in direct assistance to state and local governments. Remember, Mitch McConnell had said no blue state bailouts, no money going to state and local governments. The HEROES Act passed by the House did call for that. And we thought Republicans were going to say no way. Well, now we're hearing from the White House sources and others that yes, in fact, there will be direct assistance to state and local governments. Red state, blue state, it doesn't matter because they are getting crushed right now. And essential services are drying up. And Chairman Powell yesterday talked about this, how he sees that as a definite need, not only for essential services, but employment. All of these people at these state and local levels that are going to lose their jobs if they don't get additional money into the state hands. So 2 different senators talked to him yesterday during his testimony about that, and Powell was emphatic that state and local governments need that assistance. So I hope the Senate was paying attention. This is not a blue state, red state battle. It's an all-state battle right now. So that's the very latest on the stimulus. Those are some of the big stories we're following today. And we should hear tomorrow from President Trump on this infrastructure plan. As early as Thursday, we're hearing from the White House. We could hear more details about that. And we hear that deep discussions are happening right now between the White House and the Senate Majority Leader and the leadership team in the Senate. So that's big news that while they're about to take their 2-week vacation, that they will have something in place by the August recess of a second round of stimulus. So we'll be following it for you when we have more details on that. We will be able to provide that. All right, let's talk about the state of sports. I have been waiting I want to see my Philadelphia Phillies play again. I want to be able to watch some NBA basketball. I want to be able to watch some Saturday, Sunday golf, but we haven't been able to do any of that. All we got was that rained out Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. It was a disaster. It was fun, but it reminded me, oh my gosh, how much we need sports. So I wanted to invite on a longtime friend, great friend, former co-anchor together for many, many years, one of the keenest, sharpest minds in all of sports. Anytime I had to do a sports segment on our show, I said, Dave, what do I talk to this guy about? He's a Heisman Trophy winner. What did he do? And he'd give me bullet point by bullet point by bullet point what to ask him. So I wanted to welcome Dave here on the show. Dave Briggs, my longtime friend and co-anchor. Welcome in, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you, buddy. Very good to see you. Yeah, it's been a while since we have anchored a television show of any kind. How long? 10 plus years, 12 years maybe.
Has it been 10 years? Holy smokes.
Wait, when did I leave? No, it's been about 7 years, I guess it would have been. Yep,
7 years.
Just about 7 years. That's a while, though.
Holy crap. Now, let me
We
take
look the same, right?
Yeah, we all look the same, just a lot more gray. I've added like an extra 10 pounds. You look the same, as always. But take a look at this picture. I don't know if you can see this. I dug this one out of the archives this morning. Look at this. This is when we were young and happy. On the old curvy couch, there's Bill Pullman. Is that Bill Paxton? And who is that? That's Kevin Costner. Yeah, Kevin Costner and a young Dave Briggs, Allison Camerata, and me there on the end of the curvy couch years ago. So, yeah. So then you left, you're over at CNN, you had your own sports show, and now we're in this crazy time, this crazy pandemic. So, first of all, how have you been? What have you been doing to pass the time as a sports guy? I mean, didn't ESPN basically collapse? Like they're running reruns of stuff. Like, what are you doing for sports right now?
Yeah, it's been really difficult for me and for millions of Americans. So I left actually CNN at the end of the year and had the incredible opportunity to get a job with Turner Sports being a part of my first ever NCAA tournament, which was the job of a lifetime, the opportunity of a lifetime for me. And then this pandemic came, and I kept watching what was
Oh,
happening with sports and just holding on for dear life that they would let the tournament, the NCAA basketball tournament, play out. They, of course, canceled it, crushing my hopes and dreams and putting my career on hold. So, yeah, I had a podcast as well that was sports based, which was canceled. So, it has been very, very difficult for me and for millions of Americans. And just to have the distraction alone, not just professionally to not be working, but just to have the distraction of baseball, of basketball, of hockey. We have seen it slowly come back. There was actually a real golf tournament last weekend in Fort Worth with a full field. I mean, Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth, Patrick Reed, Dustin Johnson, you name it. So that was the first real field of tournaments. Of course, no fans, social distancing guidelines, and NASCAR has been back for a couple of weeks. No fans. I don't think NASCAR is all that different. You're not an auto racing fan, so you probably missed those
right.
races. I don't think it's all that different from the way it was before.
It's weird. I mean, I've definitely watched, watched football, European football, and whatever else we could get our hands on. And to watch those matches, at least you have their teammates cheering on the sideline. But the roar of that crowd. To watch like I don't know, a Barcelona game or English Premier League or any one of those games, and the
Yeah.
crowd just going crazy the whole time. There's just a roar through the stadium, and now it's just like this echo, this hollow, and it just feels so weird.
Yeah, at that golf tournament, in fact, there was a hole in one on day two, and I don't think the guy realized he sank it because there was no crowd reaction. It was just like a couple of dudes playing on the local municipal golf course. But we're not going to see stadiums packed full of fans anytime soon, not in 2020, maybe in early 2021. There have been those who have floated proposals for college football and the NFL to have, let's say, somewhere between 15 and 50% capacity. The state of Texas is pushing for that. But I think the big story when you look at the sports landscape right now is Major League Baseball, because the NFL will find a way to come back. The NBA looks like they're in pretty good shape, and we'll get to that in a minute. The NHL, Major League Baseball, which I know is a game you love. You are a dedicated Philadelphia Phillies fan. Major League Baseball looks right now like they may not play at all. One
Oh,
week ago, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, said 100% guarantees that they would have a season. Then 2 nights ago on ESPN, Manfred told Mike Greenberg he's not confident there will be a season. And then last night, reports trickling out that 6 to 8 owners at this point are in favor of just scrapping the season altogether. If they lose 8, that's not enough to vote to confirm a season. So the two sides, there is animosity, there is bad faith negotiating tactics through the media. They are at the edge of the Grand Canyon, staring at one another, not realizing that they're both about to fall off that cliff together, because it doesn't look like there's a season right now. And
wow.
Major League Baseball will never recover from that if that's the case.
Well, we saw how long it took them to recover. What was it, 20 years ago when they had that huge mess? We wondered if baseball would ever
Yeah.
recover. It slowly came back. I just think the pace of that game doesn't keep up with what we see in the NFL and NBA, and just
Right.
it's hard to maybe attract those young fans. But what is keeping them from this season? What can't they figure out that could get them to the table and get this season at least halfway played?
It's very strange, right? Because all these leagues have financial details to be worked out, but there's only one that's having a problem. Only Major League Baseball. You're not hearing anything about that with the NBA, the NHL, NASCAR, golf, uh, the NFL. It is all about money right now, and the optics are a disaster. You've got billionaires fighting with millionaires over millions of dollars, and in the end, that 94 strike hurt baseball. Some feel like it was a decade. It took at least 5 or 6 years to get back to normalcy. And right now, I don't think it ever would get back to the point that it last left off, because if you have young fans lose an entire season when they are already slipping away from the sport, I'm not sure they'd ever come back. What is in the way? It's just money, because the players are saying, we already agreed to pay cuts. We already agreed to prorated salaries based on how many games we're going to play. And then the owners have continued to move the goalposts. Now, the owners have a point in saying we were factoring in full baseball stadiums when we offered you prorated salaries, not empty stadiums that they will apparently have now. I've been told they'll lose $400,000 per game with no fans in the stadium. So they're saying we need further uh, giving more money back. The players need to give more money back. And there's no negotiation right now. Rob Manfred is not even talking with the players union. It's been more than a week. They're angry. They're mad. The players want to see the owners' books. The owners will not show them their books. Again, it just doesn't look like we are headed towards a baseball season. There was hope that they could play 75 games, then 50. And now I think even if you play 40 to 45 games, it'd be a miracle. On top of that, Dr. Anthony Fauci said yesterday he really doesn't think baseball should play well into October because of that risk of a second COVID wave. He thinks it's best if they can wrap it up before then. So they've got COVID issues, but that's not what's really hurting the dialogue between them. It is all about money. And if you want to blame anyone, you have to blame both sides. Although I would understand if you say these owners are billionaires, they can get this season resumed somehow, some way, but they are refusing to budge right now, bro.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You think about these different leagues right now and who would benefit from coming back. You think people in the chat room saying like, well, we're obviously mostly concerned about the stimulus and getting money in the pockets, but think about how many employees work at those stadiums. You think about, you go to a Phillies game, you're getting a cheesesteak. Saw a local report in Philadelphia, a woman, she's like, I've been cutting these cheesesteaks, making cheesesteaks here at the stadium at Citizens Bank Park for 20 years. And now I don't know what I'm going to do. And so all of these jobs that it employs, it's not just about the game, right? It's so much bigger than that.
Much bigger than that. You've got hundreds of employees in the stadium, and then you've got thousands outside the stadium, and they're entirely reliant on baseball games. So you look at all the bars and the restaurants and the transportation and the parking. It expands. It is a web of thousands, and then you have to expand on that. We forget about minor league baseball. There are minor league baseball players that aren't being paid right now. Some have been essentially let go. Minor league baseball is really a strong part of the economy in hundreds of cities across the country, smaller towns that don't have big industry. So minor league baseball, as that web continues to expand across the country, no baseball is harming just about every corner of the American economy. And it's also hurt just from a sense of spirit. People need something to rally around, something positive, something to distract from. So it's really, really devastating for a baseball fan to be staring at these owners and these players fighting over millions of dollars and not just finding some sort of middle ground. Because when you look at the NBA, it looks like, no doubt about it, they are going to have basketball probably by late July. Now, they've got two issues there as well. They've got the social unrest, the racial unrest that is sweeping the country. That's one problem they're going to have to deal with. And then they've got to deal with COVID. But their plan looks really interesting. Late July, they'll be down in Disney World. They're going to have 22 teams going to play a modified postseason and go play an NBA Finals by mid-October. Very cool system they've got set up. They're kind of in a bubble down in Disney World, 3 hotels, essentially quarantined with their teams, with some fans, some sponsors, and some media. But Commissioner Adam Silver just has a better rapport with the players. And if you want to blame someone right now with baseball, it's that Commissioner Rob Manfred doesn't seem to have any rapport with the stars of that league, where Adam Silver really has the pulse of the league. And again, there are some guys that think they shouldn't play because of the protests related to George Floyd. They say they're going to distract people from their cause. if they in fact play basketball, I have to say they are 100% wrong on that one. They need to play to get more attention to their cause of systemic racism, because if they're able to, let's just say, take a knee or wear a t-shirt that says "I can't breathe" before a broadcast that has 10, 20 million people watching, they're going to do a lot more for their cause playing than they would somehow sitting out and just marching and protest and tweeting and going on Instagram. So they're definitely going to work it out. There may be a couple of guys that say they won't play, but the NBA will eventually play a truncated season, hand an NBA champion by mid-October. The crazy thing there is they'd turn around and have training camp the very next month and start the season in December. We're talking about the 2021 season. So
wow.
NBA Finals mid-October, training camp the next month, and start another season 1 month after that. So we're going to see the impacts of this years down the road.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about October. You think about October baseball. You think about maybe hockey starting right around then. You think of football in high gear. You'd have like every sport playing simultaneously, which is, right? That doesn't normally happen in that way. But what did I ask you about? Well, so you mentioned the systemic racism, of course, Colin Kaepernick making headlines again, and whether or not what's going to happen in the NFL. You know, what's going to happen with the NFL? Is there going to be a season? And President Trump said, "I want everyone in the stands. You know, I want to see everyone back at games," and that's creeping up on us here at the end of August, right? I mean, now we've got even an extended season. It's more games in the season, so it's even a longer season. What do you think? What are your sources telling you in the football world? Are we going to see packed stadiums for the NFL? Where will Colin Kaepernick be playing, if at all? Will he be going to the Seattle Seahawks?
Let's start with Colin Kaepernick. Look, I don't think he gets signed, and it's just because of the reality of the market right now. When you look at Cam Newton, he was an MVP as recent as 2015. He was the MVP in this league when released by the Panthers. He still has no job. Cam Newton, former MVP, still has no job. Jameis Winston, who was the Buccaneers quarterback last year, threw for 5,000 yards. Yeah, 30-plus interceptions, but 5,000 yards and more than 30 touchdowns. He got a one-year contract as a backup quarterback. So the quarterback market just doesn't really support Colin Kaepernick right now, a guy who's been out of the league 3+ full seasons, and people wonder how his skills have diminished. And then on top of that, how many owners say, we want that kind of distraction? NFL owners hate distractions more than anything else on the planet, and they will do just about anything to avoid them unless it appears that Colin Kaepernick could somehow take them to the promised land and be a Pro Bowl quarterback. But at this point, there's no indication that that's the case. So I don't think he gets signed. You'd have to find me one situation where the owner is very progressive, the coach is very progressive, and most importantly, the fan base is very progressive. So you'd need, a market like Philadelphia. Now they're loaded with quarterbacks, so that's not going to happen. But trying to think of an ownership group and a fan base that are equally progressive, where it'd be a PR win to have Kaepernick on your team, and where you really want to try to move some jerseys. I just don't see it happening given the quarterback market.
Yeah.
When you move to the COVID concerns, it's kind of amazing that we haven't heard a lot about it. Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has said as recently as a few weeks ago that he could see 50% capacity stadiums. Now, the NFL and college football have both pushed back on that. They don't think it's a real great idea to have 50% capacity in these stadiums, but that's what he'd like to see. The state of Florida has laid out a plan for Dolphins, Buccaneers stadiums where they'd have, I think it's around a quarter capacity. Let me just tell you, we're going to have a full NFL season. I do believe that. Too much money at stake. I do not think fans will be there until at least late November, more likely December, once we see what happens in terms of a second wave. I just can't imagine anyone's going to take that risk. But look again, I mean, the president's
look at the Trump rally.
June 20th.
Look at the Trump rally in Oklahoma this weekend. I mean, you have to go to the Trump website and register to and sign a waiver saying that if you come to this event, you can't sue the Trump campaign if you get COVID when you come here. Maybe the NFL could do something like that. Have you signed waivers to go to an Eagles game that if you come to an Eagles game, you can't sue the Eagles if you get COVID?
I think that absolutely will be the case. I think no matter when you see fans, you're going to have to either sign a waiver or they'll just place it right on the back of the ticket, which a lot of teams do, sneak in liability clauses right on the ticket. As a ticket holder, you inherit some percentage of risk like you do at a baseball game by getting hit by a foul ball and things of that nature. Hockey, where you could take a puck. I do think that would absolutely be a part of the equation for fans, just assuming some portion of risk. I think that Trump rally is really a testing ground, because if it appears to be some type of super spreader event, you're going to shut down fans altogether for the NHL and college football, because numbers are spiking in Texas, in Arkansas, even portions of Oklahoma near Tulsa. So that's a little scary that they're doing that. I wish they would try social distancing. But the next thing to look out for, Clayton, and people don't, again, talk a lot about auto racing, the Indy 500 is the biggest race in all of racing. That is not NASCAR. That is the Indy cars. Roger Penske bought Indianapolis Motor Speedway just in the past year, and they are going forward. They say full speed ahead, packed stadium. That's late August.
Wow.
August 23rd. So you could be talking about 100,000 fans at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Are they going to be wearing masks? They will obviously not be social distance. But if that works, then maybe we'll see packed stadiums in the fall. If it doesn't, that is a scary precedent down the road.
Well, even in Jacksonville, we have a test case ahead of time with the RNC, not too far from now as well. And if they're going to put those cruise ships in the canal in Jacksonville once again, like they did during the Super Bowl 15 years ago, because they don't have enough hotel space, you're going to have cruise ships filled with RNC senior citizens. That's going to be an interesting test case. We got a super chat here in the chat. Marhio said, do you think sports tickets will skyrocket? Do you think that that's an inevitability, that we're going to have the ticket prices are going to go through the roof to make up for that lost revenue, or stay the same?
Absolutely not. I think that, look, every team would love to raise their ticket prices, and if ever they're given the opportunity, they will do it. Every team that wins a Super Bowl or World Series or an NBA Finals or a Stanley Cup tend to raise prices just a little bit that next season. I don't think the demand will be there. It's just a simple supply and demand equation. I just don't think, I can't think of anybody outside Boston, Chicago, maybe St. Louis. There might be 2 or 3 markets passionate enough right now that could afford to raise their ticket prices where the demand is still there. I think you've still got 30 plus million unemployed Americans. These $600 stimulus checks are going to be turned off. I do not by any means think there will be that type of demand to pack stadiums. In fact, I think we're going to have real trouble down the road, because how many people will forever change their attitudes. For example, all my friends, I live in a town in Connecticut where restaurants are open, and my friends just aren't going. They just feel like they adjusted their life to the point where they have friends over to the patio. I think people have made permanent changes in their life. I don't think you'll see the demand to go to sporting events in person in the future. Again, 2 or 3, maybe 5 cities that have it, but NFL stadiums are already in trouble. You just mentioned Jacksonville. You ever turned on a Jacksonville Jaguars game and seen maybe 60% capacity? So
right.
I think they're going to really struggle to fill stadiums in the next couple of years, especially when they're the NBA and the NHL and they're indoor facilities.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people saying, well, what's important right now? Obviously, family and being able to put food on our table is important. Sports is a fabric of our society, just like being able to interact with other human beings is a fabric of our society. So all of this is tied together. You can always judge a civilization by how they entertain themselves, going back to Roman times. And so we choose to entertain ourselves in America by the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball and others. and frankly, the WWE, you know? So I think we're in for a big change. It's going to be interesting to see over the next few weeks and into the NFL season what this all looks like. But more importantly, man, it's just been great to see you. My longtime friend, Dave Briggs, who we cut our teeth together years ago in Midtown Manhattan as news anchors together. And I said, I want to have Dave on. I'd love to be able to talk about the state of sports, but more importantly, just to catch up, say hi, and see how you're doing, my friend. So it's been a real treat having you here on the show. So thanks so much for popping in and educating us about the world of sports right now.
It's been great to see you. One of the someone chimes in and says the Packers. Steven says the Packers have a 25-year waiting list. Steven, I absolutely should have included the Packers in that list. Green Bay is one of those cities that they would be able to raise ticket prices, and probably the Bucks too, given that Giannis is around. So again, probably somewhere in 5 to 6 cities around the country that could afford to do it. But it's great to see you, man. And I'm impressed. I got to say, I am blown away by the quality of your show here on YouTube. I mean, I think the games have changed. Your show looks better than a lot of the national, Today's Show, GMA looks every bit as good, bro. So it is impressive, man. I'm blown away.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. And it's always great. It elevates the game when you have a true professional on the show like yourself as well. Someone that understands the cut of the jib in the broadcasting world. So awesome to have you, man. We'll have you back on here in the next few months as we look at the NFL season and just to be able to catch up on sports then as we see how the summer unfolds.
Talk politics, too.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
I love to talk politics.
Well, let's do it as we head into the conventions. We'll have you on because he's a keen mind for politics as well. And I know that very well from anchoring with you for many years. So give my best to the family, my friend. Great to see you. And thanks for joining us on the show, buddy.
Tell Natalie and the kids hello.
I will. Thanks, man. That's my friend Dave Briggs, brilliant sports anchor and brilliant in the world of politics as well, and longtime friend and anchor. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun having Dave on. I was real, I want to try to mix things up and try some different things here on the show. Tomorrow, please make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow here on the show, we've got a big show. We've got our cryptocurrency show. This is going to be an education for me. It's going to be an education for you. We've got Anthony Pompliano on the show tomorrow, and we're going to be deep diving the world of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general, the people's currency. Look, I like to say there's 3 different types of currencies, right? There's government currency, which is fiat currency, that always has collapsed in world history. What do you think's happening right now to the US dollar? Then you have God's money, right? That's real estate, gold and silver. Stuff that you cannot remove from this earth. Land, gold, silver. And then the third thing is the people's currency, which emerged in 2009. And cryptocurrency, this, no state has control of it. The people have control of it. We know exactly how much is being created at any given time. And it's become one of the most powerful ways that we now have to invest. So we're going to deep dive cryptocurrency in an area that I'm becoming increasingly passionate about. So we'll have that here on the show tomorrow. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel and be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We will do our normal show and then open it up to Anthony, where we will deep dive questions about cryptocurrency. So my thanks to all of you. You guys are great. Thank you for all of your great feedback today on the show. Much love to all of you. We'll see you again tomorrow.